Hello, students learning from home. Today we are going to do lesson 11, which is multiplying a decimal fraction by single-digit whole numbers. So I'm going to teach you some different strategies to do that. To warm up, we're going to do a couple fluencies. So our first one is one that you have done before called take out the unit. So we're going to start with a number. To follow along, if you have your personal whiteboard, you should get that right now so that you can write these down. If you don't have your personal whiteboard, you can just use a piece of scrap paper. That's totally fine also. All right, press play when you're ready to go. All right, first I want you to write down the number 1 and 234 thousandths. 1 and 234 thousandths. Then we are going to take out the thousandths. So 1 and 234 thousandths equals how many thousandths? Go ahead and write that on your boards. That's right, 1,234 thousandths is equal to 1 and 234 thousandths. How much is 1,000 thousandths? 1,000 thousandths is equal to 1. Write the number 65 and 247 thousandths on your board. 65 and 247 thousandths. This time, I want you to take out the ones and then represent the rest of the number in thousandths. What is this number, 65 and 247 thousandths, if we wrote it in unit form of only ones and thousandths? Go ahead and write that on your paper. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, you're back. So this would be 65 ones, 247 thousandths. You guys are getting really good at writing unit form. Let's try another. What if I had 76 and 358 thousandths, and I want you to rewrite this number as tens and thousandths. Press pause, record your number, and press play when you are ready to check your answer. Okay, for this one, we would have 7 tens, 6,358 thousandths. Because all I did was take out my tens place and express the rest of my number as thousandths. What if I took that same number, 76 and 358 thousandths, and I asked you to express it as tenths and then thousandths? Look at that number and write down how I could express this number in tenths and thousandths. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. This number would be 763 tenths. I went up to the tenths place, and then I have 58 thousandths. All right, one more. 76 and 358 thousandths. Express this number as only hundredths and thousandths. Press pause, record your answer, and press play when you're ready to check it. All right, this would be 7,635 hundredths. I recorded my number up to the hundredths place, 8 thousandths. All right, we'll keep practicing taking out the units. Let's move on right now to another fluency. Last week, you learned how to add and subtract decimals. And so what we're going to do right now is do a little practicing with that. So on your whiteboard or on a piece of paper, write down 7,258 thousandths plus 1,000th equals how many, I ran out of space, thousandths? 7,258 thousandths plus 1,000th gives us how many thousandths? That's right, 7,259 thousandths. When you're combining like units, it's just like what you guys did when you were in first, second, third, fourth grade. If this said apples, you would say 7,258 apples plus 1 apple is 7,259 apples. Our unit is thousandths, and this works because our unit is the same. 7,258 thousandths plus 1,000th equals 7,259 thousandths. Now write that number sentence in standard form. It is written in uniform. Write this in standard form. Press pause, write it in standard form, and press play when you are ready. All right. You should have written 7 and 258 thousandths. That's that number. Plus 1,000th equals 7 and 259 thousandths. If you're having trouble going back and forth between standard and unit form, you should use your place value chart to help you. All right, let's try another one. What if I have 7 ones plus, 7 ones, 258 thousandths plus 3 hundredths. Now there's some different ways to solve this. The one thing that I have been encouraging you to do, and the way that I would do this, is to write this number sentence as in standard form. 7 ones and 258 thousandths plus 3 hundredths. The next step is to write it in vertical form, which means stacking them. And you have to make sure your place values line up. 7 and 258 thousandths plus, that's my ones place, there's my decimal, there's my tenths place, there's my hundredths place. A lot of you like to fill in the 0, so you have a matching number of digits. 8 thousandths plus 0 thousandths is 8 thousandths. 5 hundredths plus 3 hundredths is 8 hundredths. 2 tenths plus 0 tenths is 2 tenths. Bring my decimal. 7 ones plus 0 ones is 7 ones. And I could write that 7 and 288 thousandths, or I could write 7 ones, 288 thousandths. You guys remember this? All right, let's try one more addition problem. What if I had 7 ones, 258 thousandths plus 4 tenths? Again, this is much easier to solve if you write it in standard form. Use your place value chart if you need to. 7 and 258 thousandths plus, how would you write 4 tenths? That's right, 4 tenths equals. Next step, put it in vertical form. 7 and 258 thousandths plus, line up your place value, 0 ones, there's my decimal, 4 tenths, fill in your zeros so you have the same number of digits, 8 thousandths plus 0 thousandths is 8 thousandths. 5 hundredths plus 0 hundredths is 5 hundredths. 2 tenths plus 4 tenths is 6 tenths. 7 ones plus 0 ones is 7 ones. My answer is 7 and 658 thousandths. 7 ones, 658 thousandths. And that's a quick review on how to add decimals using the standard algorithm. Now, another thing we can do is subtract. We learned last week. So, on your whiteboard or your paper, write down 4 ones, 8 hundredths minus 2 ones. Some of you might be able to do this staying in unit form. Some of you may want to write this in standard form. If I were going to look at this, go ahead and try to solve it. Press play when you're ready for an explanation. Okay, so 2 ways to think of this. 4 ones minus 2 ones is 2 ones. 8 hundredths minus, there's no hundredths in that number, is going to leave me with 8 hundredths. Now, another way to think of this is to write 4 ones and 8 hundredths minus 2. Then put it in vertical form. Make sure you line up your place values. I have 4 ones, 8 hundredths. I have 2 ones. I know after my ones place there's a decimal, and I can fill in these zeros, and that equals the same number. 2 and 0 hundredths is the same as 2. Next, I subtract. 8 hundredths minus 0 hundredths is 8 hundredths. 0 tenths minus 0 tenths is 0 tenths. I bring my decimal. 4 ones minus 2 ones is 2 ones, which is equal to 2 ones, 8 hundredths. 2 ones, 8 hundredths. All right, let's try another one. What if I have 4 ones, 582 thousandths minus 3 hundredths? All right, you guys try this one. First, write it in standard form. Then write it in vertical form and solve. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, so for this one, I would write 4 and 582 thousandths minus 3 hundredths. If you don't remember how to write it in standard form, go back and use your place value chart. It will totally help you. You would just put a 3 in the hundredths column, and you would be able to see exactly how to set this up. Then I write it in vertical form. 4 and 582 thousandths minus 3 hundredths. I fill in my 0 so that I have the matching number of digits in each of my place values. 2 thousandths minus 0 is 2 thousandths. 8 hundredths minus 3 hundredths is 5 hundredths. 5 tenths minus 0 tenths is 5 tenths. 4 ones minus 0 ones is 4 ones. And my answer is 4 and 552 thousandths. All right. You can stop this video, and next I want you to go on to the next video, which is our application problem for today.